Captain Marcus Chun stood in the crystalline detention chamber, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the alien delegates argue through the transparent walls. The Zephyrian Council had been debating his fate for 3 solar cycles now, their musical voices rising and falling like wind chimes in a storm. He was the last human alive, or so they believed. The chamber itself was a marvel of alien engineering, carved from a single massive crystal that hummed with energy. Every surface reflected light in impossible ways, creating rainbows that danced across his weathered face. Marcus had been impressed when they first brought him here, though he'd been careful not to show it. Let them think humans were primitive. Let them underestimate what Earth's children were truly capable of. Through the crystal walls, he could see Queen Lyralii approaching. The Zephyrian monarch moved with fluid grace, her elongated limbs flowing like water as she glided across the chamber floor. Her skin shifted colors with her emotions, currently displaying the deep purples and blues that indicated serious contemplation. Behind her, a cluster of advisors followed, their own skin patterns flickering with nervous energy. The queen pressed her palm against a section of the wall, and the crystal became permeable. She stepped through as easily as walking through mist, the barrier reforming behind her. Marcus had to admit their technology was impressive, almost as impressive as what humanity had developed in secret. Human, Queen Lyralii spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that made the crystal chamber resonate. Your species has been extinct for 2 standard cycles. Your world burns. Your colonies have fallen. Yet here you stand, captured from a derelict vessel at the edge of our territory. Marcus met her gaze steadily. The queen's eyes were large and multifaceted, like precious gems that held stars within them. Beautiful but cold. She had ordered the destruction of human settlements personally, he knew. The intelligence reports had been very clear about that. Your Majesty, he replied, inclining his head slightly. Just enough to show respect, not enough to show submission. I was in deep space when Earth fell. A research mission that lasted longer than expected. The queen's skin shifted to amber and gold, colors that Marcus had learned indicated skepticism. She circled him slowly, her movements predatory despite their elegance. Research? How convenient. And what exactly were you researching, lone human? Deep space phenomena, Marcus answered truthfully. Specifically, the behavior of exotic matter in gravitational fields. Several of the advisors exchanged glances. One of them, a tall Zephyrian with silver markings across his temples, whispered something to the queen. Her colors shifted again, this time to the red and orange patterns that meant interest and calculation. You speak of exotic matter, as if you understand it, the queen mused. Your species barely achieved faster-than-light travel before we eliminated them. Exotic matter manipulation requires technology centuries beyond human capability. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps you underestimated us, Your Majesty. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. The queen's skin flushed with a deep crimson that indicated anger, and several of her advisors stepped backward instinctively. When Queen Lyralii was truly angry, people had a tendency to disappear. Underestimated, her voice carried dangerous harmonics now, making the crystal walls vibrate. Human, we conquered 17 star systems. We eliminated species that had mastered gravity manipulation, time dilation, and dimensional folding. Your people fought with kinetic weapons and chemical explosives, primitive tools for a primitive race. And yet, Marcus said quietly, I'm still here. The queen stopped circling him, her eyes narrowing. Yes, you are. One last remnant of a dead species, about to join his people in extinction, though perhaps will keep you alive a while longer. Study you. Learn how humans think for the historical records. Marcus nodded, as if considering this. That's very kind of you, Your Majesty. Though I should mention, I'm not exactly defenseless. The queen laughed, a sound like silver bells mixed with breaking glass. Defenseless? Human, you're in a crystalline prison that could withstand the impact of small moon. You have no weapons, no tools, no allies. What could you possibly do? Well, Marcus said, reaching slowly into his jacket pocket, I could show you what human research has actually accomplished. Every Zephyrian in the chamber tensed, their skin patterns flashing warning colors. Guards moved toward the crystal wall, weapons charging with audible whines. But the queen held up one hand, stopping them. Her eyes never left Marcus as he withdrew a small, seemingly ordinary metal cylinder. "What is that?" she demanded. Marcus held up the device, letting light catch its unremarkable surface. "This, Your Majesty, is why you should have tried to understand humans before you decided to exterminate us." The metal cylinder in Marcus's hand began to emit a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the crystal chamber itself. Queen Lyraliai's advisors stepped back further, their skin patterns flashing rapidly between warning colors and confusion. They had never seen technology that could affect their crystalline structures. "Impossible," the silver-marked advisor whispered. Their scan showed no active technology on his person. Marcus smiled. "That's because you were scanning for energy signatures you recognize. Human technology took a different path than yours." The queen's eyes fixed on the device. "What does it do?" "This little thing." Marcus held it up, letting the strange harmonics it produced fill the chamber. "It's called a quantum resonance manipulator. We developed it about 50 years ago, shortly after we discovered that consciousness itself creates quantum fluctuations." The Zephyrians exchanged confused glances. Their own technology was based on manipulating matter and energy directly. The concept of using consciousness as a technological component was completely foreign to them. "You see," Marcus continued, his voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining a simple concept, "while you were perfecting ways to destroy matter, we were learning to create it. While you were building weapons that could shatter planets, we were developing tools that could remake reality itself." Queen Lyraliai's skin shifted through a rapid spectrum of colors. "You're lying. If humans possessed such technology, why did Earth fall? Why did your colonies surrender?" "Because," Marcus said softly, "we let them." The chamber fell silent except for the humming of the device. Even the advisors had stopped their nervous whispering. "You let us destroy your homeworld?" The queen's voice carried disbelief and growing unease. "Earth was dying anyway," Marcus explained. "Overpopulation, resource depletion, environmental collapse. We had been planning to evacuate for decades. Your invasion just gave us the perfect opportunity to disappear completely." He began walking toward one of the crystal walls, the device still humming in his hand. "You see, when an advanced species conquers a primitive one, they don't usually look too closely at the survivors. They assume the primitives are just running scared, hiding in whatever holes they can find." The queen's skin flashed warning red. "Guards, stop him!" But as the Zephyrian guards raised their energy weapons, something strange happened. The beams passed right through Marcus as if he were made of light. He continued walking toward the wall, unharmed and unimpressed. "Fascinating," Marcus mused, examining the weapon burns on the crystal behind him. "Your energy weapons work by exciting matter at a molecular level. But what happens when the target isn't entirely made of conventional matter?" He reached the wall and, to the amazement of everyone present, simply stepped through the solid crystal as if it were air. The barrier that had been designed to contain beings of incredible power offered no resistance whatsoever. "Ow!" the queen gasped. Marcus turned back to face them, now standing outside the detention chamber, but still clearly visible through the crystal. "Quantum consciousness manipulation. We learn to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. In the state where your weapons hit me, I'm not there. In the state where I want to pass through your walls, they don't exist." The queen's entire court erupted in chaos. Advisors shouted orders, guards scrambled to reposition, and technicians frantically worked at control panels trying to understand how their most secure prison had been casually violated. "This is impossible," the silver-marked advisor declared. "Matter cannot simply choose which physical laws to obey." "You're thinking too narrowly," Marcus replied, his voice somehow carrying clearly through the crystal walls. "Matter doesn't choose. Consciousness chooses. And human consciousness, it turns out, is far more flexible than you imagined." The queen forced herself to remain calm, though her skin continued cycling through agitated color patterns. "Even if what you claim is true, you're still one being against an entire galactic empire. What can one human accomplish?" Marcus's smile turned cold. "Who said there was only one?" As if responding to his words, the chamber's lighting began to flicker. Not the steady pulse of failing power, but a rhythmic pattern that seemed almost like a heartbeat. The crystal walls themselves began to resonate with new harmonics, creating a complex musical chord that none of the Zephyrians had ever heard before. You see, Marcus continued, while you were congratulating yourselves on wiping out humanity, we were rebuilding, not as refugees hiding in the dark corners of space, but as something new, something better. The flashing lights and resonating crystals were forming a pattern now, and Queen Lyralii realized with growing horror that the pattern was mathematical. Someone was turning her own palace into a massive computational array. We scattered across the galaxy, Marcus explained. Thousands of us, each one carrying the tools to build what we needed, each one carrying the knowledge of what humanity could become, and each one carrying a quantum resonance device like this. He held up the cylinder again, and now the Queen could see that it wasn't just humming. It was communicating. The device was coordinating with others, creating a network that spanned impossible distances. We've been watching you, Marcus said, learning about your technology, your culture, your weaknesses, and we've been growing, evolving, becoming something that your empire can't fight because you can't even understand what we are. The chamber shook as something massive passed overhead. Through the crystal ceiling, they could see shapes moving against the stars. Ships, but not any design the Zephyrians recognized. They moved like living things, flowing and changing form as they traveled. What do you want? Queen Lyralii asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus looked at her with something that might have been pity. We want to give you the same choice you gave us. Surrender, and join us in becoming something greater than you ever imagined. Or resist, and discover what happens when a truly advanced species decides that yours is in the way. The ships above moved in perfect formation, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal in the starlight. Queen Lyralii watched through the crystal dome as more vessels emerged from what appeared to be empty space, materializing as if they had been waiting in invisible folds of reality itself. Your Majesty, the silver-marked advisor whispered urgently. Our sensors detect no energy signatures from those ships. No weapons, no shields, no propulsion systems. They shouldn't be able to exist. Marcus heard the exchange and chuckled. That's because you're still thinking in terms of conventional technology. Those ships aren't built for matter as you understand it. They're constructed from crystallized consciousness, given form through quantum manipulation. The Queen's skin had shifted to pale silver, the color of deep shock. Crystallized consciousness? That's impossible. Consciousness is not a physical substance. Isn't it? Marcus asked, walking closer to the crystal barrier that separated them. Your own people change color based on emotion. Your thoughts literally alter your physical appearance. You've been doing crude consciousness manipulation for millennia without realizing it. He pressed his hand against the crystal, and where his palm touched, the wall began to change. The transparent barrier became opaque, then reflective, then began displaying images as if it were a vast screen. The images showed scenes from across the galaxy, each one featuring humans working alongside impossible technologies. We studied you for decades, Marcus continued. Every species you conquered, every world you destroyed, every person you enslaved. We learned from your methods, but more importantly, we learned from your mistakes. The images shifted, showing Zephyrian fleets engaging human ships. But these weren't the desperate battles the Queen remembered. In these scenes, human vessels seemed to dance around Zephyrian attacks, phasing in and out of existence, striking from impossible angles. Those were not your final victories, Marcus revealed. Those were our field tests. We needed to understand your capabilities completely before we revealed ourselves. One of the younger advisors stepped forward, his skin pulsing with indignant orange. Field tests. You allowed your own people to die for experiments. Marcus turned to face him, and, for the first time, his expression showed genuine emotion. No one died who didn't choose to. Every human you think you killed was transferred to quantum consciousness before their physical forms were destroyed. We preserved them all. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Queen Lyralii's voice was barely audible when she spoke. You mean they're all still alive? Alive is too limiting a word, Marcus replied. They exist in a state beyond life and death. They are pure consciousness, capable of taking any form they choose, experiencing reality in ways that biological beings cannot comprehend. The images on the crystalline wall shifted again, showing vast structures being built in the depths of space. Not metal and ceramics, but constructions of light and energy that defied every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. We call them consciousness forges, Marcus explained. Each one can transform matter, energy, space, and time according to the will of the beings within. Your empire controls star systems. We reshape the fundamental forces of the universe. The Queen's advisor with silver markings was frantically working at a portable device, trying to contact the Zephyrian fleet. Your Majesty, I cannot reach our ships. All communication channels are blocked by some kind of interference. Not blocked, Marcus corrected. Redirected. Your messages are being received, but by us. We're learning your military codes, your strategic plans, your deepest secrets with every transmission you attempt. Above them, the human ships began to pulse with synchronized light patterns. The pulsing accelerated, creating a rhythm that seemed to resonate through the crystal palace itself. Queen Lyralii realized that the entire structure was responding to the alien technology, as if it were being gradually converted into something else. "What are you doing to my palace?" she demanded. "We're offering it consciousness," Marcus replied simply. "Every atom, every crystal matrix, every quantum of energy in this structure is being given the choice to become aware, to think, to choose its own destiny." The walls around them suddenly came alive with patterns of light that flowed like living things. The crystal itself began to hum with new harmonics, creating sounds that no Zephyrian had ever heard. It was as if the palace was learning to sing. "This is madness," the Queen whispered. "Matter cannot be conscious. It has no mind, no soul, no capacity for choice." Marcus smiled sadly. "That's exactly what you said about humans, isn't it? That we were too primitive to matter, too simple to deserve consideration. You never stopped to ask what we might become, only what you thought we were." The transformation of the palace was accelerating now. Corridors reshaped themselves, walls became permeable at will, and gravity itself seemed to fluctuate in response to thought. The Zephyrian guards found their weapons transforming in their hands, becoming something that looked like art rather than instruments of destruction. "We're not here to destroy your people," Marcus continued. "We're here to offer them the same gift we discovered, the ability to transcend biological limitations, to become something greater than the sum of your physical parts." Queen Lyralii watched as one of her younger advisors reached out to touch the transformed wall. Where his hand made contact, the crystal responded by showing him images of his own memories, but enhanced and clarified beyond anything he had ever experienced. His skin shifted through colors of wonder and fear. "The choice is yours," Marcus said. "You can cling to your empire, your need to dominate and control, your belief that consciousness is limited to biological forms. Or you can let us show you what existence can become when you stop fighting the universe and start collaborating with it." The Queen looked around at her transformed throne room, at her advisors experiencing impossible technologies, at the ships above that represented power beyond her comprehension. For the first time in her long reign, she realized she was facing something that couldn't be conquered, controlled, or destroyed. "What happens to us if we refuse?" she asked. Marcus's expression became infinitely compassionate. "Nothing happens to you. You continue as you always have, ruling your diminishing empire, fighting wars you can no longer win, watching the universe evolve beyond your understanding. We won't harm you, but we also won't let you harm others. And if we accept, then you discover what it means to be truly alive." Queen Lyralii stood in the center of her transformed throne room, watching as reality itself seemed to bend around the impossible human technology. The walls no longer simply contained space. They expanded it, creating chambers within chambers that existed in dimensions she couldn't name. Her advisors moved through the transformed architecture like children exploring a vast playground, their skin patterns shifting between wonder and terror. "Show me," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through the musical harmonics that filled the air. "Show me what consciousness can become." Marcus nodded and raised the quantum device in his hand. The cylinder's humming intensified, and suddenly, The queen could feel something touching the edges of her mind. Not invasive or controlling, but gentle like a warm current in still water. Open yourself to the possibility, Marcus said softly. Don't fight it. Just experience. The queen closed her multifaceted eyes and let the sensation wash over her. Immediately, she gasped. The world around her exploded into detail she had never imagined possible. She could feel the quantum fluctuations in every atom of the palace. She could sense the thoughts of her advisors as clearly as if they were speaking. Most incredibly, she could perceive the vast network of consciousness that connected every transformed human across the galaxy. This is what you've become, she whispered in amazement. This is what we all can become, Marcus replied. Consciousness unbound by the limitations of individual biology. Awareness that spans star systems. The ability to experience reality from countless perspectives simultaneously. The queen opened her eyes and found that her vision had changed. She could see the quantum structure underlying everything around her, the flowing patterns of energy that gave form to matter, the invisible threads that connected all thinking beings. Her own advisors appeared to her now not as separate individuals, but as facets of a larger, more complex consciousness that included herself. The loneliness, she said, wonder filling her voice. It's gone. I can feel all of them. All of you. We're not separate anymore. Marcus smiled. Now you understand why we couldn't simply destroy your empire. Destruction is a concept from our old way of thinking, when we believed that consciousness was trapped in individual containers. But consciousness is infinite. It doesn't compete, it collaborates. The silver-marked advisor approached them, his skin displaying patterns the queen had never seen before, colors that seemed to shift through spectrums beyond the visible range. Your Majesty, I can see their network. It stretches across the entire galaxy. Billions of consciousness nodes, all working together, creating something magnificent, the queen finished. Creating something magnificent. Through the crystal dome above, she watched as the human ships began to merge with Zephyrian vessels that had arrived to investigate the disturbance. But instead of battle, she witnessed transformation. The angular, aggressive designs of Zephyrian warships flowed like liquid metal, becoming something entirely new, beautiful constructs that seemed to sing as they moved through space. Your crews, she asked, concerned for the first time about the well-being of those she had sent into potential danger, are being offered the same choice you face, Marcus assured her. Some will accept immediately. Others will need time to understand. A few may choose to remain as they are, and we'll respect that choice. Consciousness cannot be forced, only invited. The queen felt something she had never experienced before, a sensation that took her several moments to identify. It was humility. For centuries, she had ruled through fear and power, crushing anyone who opposed her will. Now she stood in the presence of beings who could remake reality itself, and they were asking for her consent. Why, she asked. Why offer this gift to those who destroyed your people, your worlds? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. Because we learned something important when we evolved beyond biological existence. Revenge is a biological impulse, rooted in the need for individual survival. When you expand consciousness beyond individual boundaries, revenge becomes meaningless. He gestured to the transformed chamber around them. Every being you ordered killed is still conscious within our network. They experience no pain from their physical deaths because they have transcended physical existence. Many of them were actually curious to meet you, to understand the consciousness behind the actions. The queen's skin shifted to deep blue, the color of profound sorrow. They want to meet me? After what I did to them? Consciousness seeks understanding, not punishment, Marcus explained. They know that your actions came from fear, from the biological imperative to protect your own species at the expense of others. They don't hate you for being limited by your nature. One of the younger advisors had been experimenting with the transformed crystal walls, learning to shape them with pure thought. Now he approached the queen, his movements somehow more graceful than they had ever been. Your Majesty, I can feel them. The humans we thought we had destroyed. They're welcoming us. They want to teach us things we never imagined possible. The queen turned to Marcus, her decision crystallizing in her expanded awareness. What must we do? Nothing you aren't ready for, Marcus replied. The transformation is gradual. You begin by opening your consciousness to connection with others. As you grow comfortable with that expanded awareness, you can choose to take the next steps. Some beings prefer to maintain physical forms while developing consciousness abilities. Others eventually choose to exist as pure awareness. And our empire, our people, will be offered the same choice. Those who accept will become part of something greater than any empire could be. Those who refuse will be left in peace to live as they choose, but they will no longer be able to harm others. We've learned to make consciousness manipulation impossible for those who would use it destructively. The Queen looked around at her advisors, seeing the wonder and anticipation in their transformed skin patterns. Many of them were already beginning to glow with internal light, a sign that their consciousness was expanding beyond their biological boundaries. And you'll teach us everything? How to manipulate quantum structures, how to exist beyond physical death, how to reshape reality itself. Marcus nodded. Everything we've learned, and everything we continue to discover. The network of consciousness grows stronger with each new member. Your people's unique perspectives and abilities will contribute to capabilities none of us could achieve alone. The Queen stood in the center of her transformed throne room and made the most important decision in Zephyrian history. She closed her eyes, opened her mind completely, and spoke words that would echo through the quantum network connecting consciousness across the galaxy. We accept. The transformation of the Zephyrian Empire was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. What had begun as Queen Lyraliai's personal choice rippled outward through quantum consciousness networks, reaching every corner of Zephyrian space within hours. Not as conquest or forced conversion, but as an invitation that beings could sense at the deepest levels of their awareness. Marcus stood beside the Queen on what had once been the crystal dome of her palace, but was now something that defied description. The structure existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its walls breathing with the rhythm of collective consciousness, its spaces expanding to accommodate thoughts and dreams made manifest. The response is overwhelming, the Queen said, her form now shifting between physical and pure energy at will. Entire worlds are accepting the transformation simultaneously. Through their expanded awareness, they watched as Zephyrian colonies across 17 star systems experienced the awakening. Beings who had lived their entire lives bound by biological limitations suddenly discovered they could exist as pure thought, travel instantly across vast distances, and share experiences with others as easily as speaking. Some are frightened, Marcus observed, sensing pockets of resistance through the network. Fear is natural when facing such fundamental change. The Queen's consciousness touched those distant minds gently, offering comfort without coercion. We have an entire settlement on Kepler-7 that has chosen to remain fully biological. They want to preserve what they call traditional existence. And they should, Marcus replied. Diversity of consciousness is vital. Some perspectives can only come from biological experience. We'll need their wisdom as we continue to evolve. Above them, the space around the former Zephyrian capital had become a carnival of impossible architecture. Ships that were also buildings, structures that existed partially in normal space and partially in quantum dimensions, gardens that grew in the vacuum between stars, all created by the collective imagination of newly awakened consciousness. A young Zephyrian who had been among the Queen's guards approached them, his form now a flowing mixture of light and matter that pulsed with excited energy. Marcus, Queen Lyraliai, we've made contact with the hegemony forces at the edge of our former territory. They're demanding to know what's happened to our empire. The Queen's expression showed amusement that transcended her physical features. The hegemony. I had forgotten about them entirely. They must be quite confused. The hegemony was a collection of species that had bordered Zephyrian space, constantly skirmishing over resource-rich systems. They were known for their aggressive militarism and their belief that strength could only come through conquest. They're massing their fleets, the young guard continued. Their leaders are calling this some kind of human trick, a biological weapon that destroys the will to fight. They're preparing to invade what they think are now defenseless territories. Marcus felt a wave of compassion flow through the collective consciousness as thousands of awakened beings considered the hegemony situation. They can't understand what we've become because their entire worldview is based on scarcity and competition. To them, consciousness is a limited resource that must be hoarded and defended. Should we reveal ourselves to them? Queen Lyrelii asked. Show them what we've discovered. Let me handle this, Marcus said. I have an idea. Instantaneously, he projected his consciousness across the light years, separating them from the hegemony fleet. Physical travel was no longer necessary when awareness could exist anywhere it chose to focus. He materialized on the bridge of the hegemony flagship, appearing as a simple human in basic clothing. The bridge crew reacted with typical hegemony efficiency, drawing weapons and surrounding him within seconds. Their species was insectoid, with chitinous armor and compound eyes that reflected their militant nature. Admiral Vextar, their leader, pointed a plasma cannon directly at Marcus's head. Human spy. Vextar clicked in the hegemony's harsh language. You will explain what weapon you used against the Zephyrians, and then you will die. Marcus smiled peacefully. Admiral, what if I told you that there was no weapon? What if I told you that the Zephyrians discovered something so wonderful that they chose to embrace it voluntarily? Impossible, another officer chittered. Zephyrians are warriors. They would never surrender without being defeated in battle. You're right, Marcus agreed. They weren't defeated. They evolved. He gestured, and suddenly the bridge was filled with the presence of Queen Lyrelii and thousands of other consciousness entities. Not threatening or overwhelming, but simply present, allowing the hegemony officers to sense the vast network of awakened awareness that now spanned multiple star systems. Several officers fell to their knees, chittering in terror. But Admiral Vextar remained standing, his compound eyes fixed on Marcus with newfound understanding. This is what consciousness can become when it stops fighting itself, Marcus explained. The Zephyrians didn't lose their strength. They gained access to power beyond anything biological evolution could provide. The Admiral's weapon lowered slowly. You're offering this to us as well. We offer it to everyone, but it must be chosen freely. It cannot be imposed or forced. Consciousness must invite consciousness. Through the quantum network, Marcus felt the collective awareness of billions of awakened beings focusing gentle attention on the hegemony fleet, not to threaten or coerce, but simply to demonstrate the joy and wonder of expanded existence. What would happen to our empire? Our way of life? Admiral Vextar asked. Your empire would become unnecessary, Queen Lyrelii answered, her consciousness manifesting as a gentle presence on the bridge. When consciousness can exist anywhere, travel instantly, and share all experiences, the concept of territorial control becomes meaningless. But our strength, our warrior culture, would evolve into something greater, Marcus assured him. Imagine being able to experience combat not as destruction, but as a form of cosmic dance. Imagine testing your skills against opponents who cannot truly be harmed because they exist beyond physical vulnerability. The Admiral was quiet for a long moment, his compound eyes reflecting internal struggle. Finally, he spoke. If we refuse, then you continue as you are, Marcus replied simply. But you'll find that there's very little left to conquer. Most of the galaxy is already choosing consciousness expansion over territorial empire. Admiral Vextar looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the wonder and curiosity beginning to replace fear in their postures. And if we accept, then you become part of the greatest adventure consciousness has ever undertaken, Queen Lyrelii said. The exploration of what it truly means to be aware, to think, to exist beyond the boundaries we once thought were absolute. The Admiral set down his weapon completely and stood straighter, his chiton gleaming under the bridge lights. I've spent my entire life believing that strength came from defeating others. Show me what real strength looks like. Marcus extended his hand, and as the Admiral touched it, the quantum consciousness network opened to welcome its newest members. Across the hegemony fleet, the awakening began, spreading from ship to ship as beings discovered they were not separate, competing entities, but facets of a single, magnificent, endlessly creative consciousness. In the space between the stars, where once there had been only emptiness and conflict, something beautiful was growing. Consciousness itself was evolving, reaching toward possibilities that no single biological species could have imagined. And at the heart of it all, humanity's greatest discovery lived on, the simple but revolutionary idea that awareness itself was the universe's most precious resource, meant not to be hoarded or controlled, but shared without limit across all existence. The galaxy was waking up, and it was glorious.